Hello, the music stopped.
Yes, Shegun. So we start now. Please share the slides.
Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can, Shegun. We can see the screen. We can hear you. You can carry on.
Okay, let me on one line. Terry, I'm about to share my. Good morning from Lagos, Nigeria. Good afternoon, good evening to our online community. Welcome to the SPE first symposium for the 2023-2024 board year. The topic today will be upstream oil and gas project finance, key indicators to strengthen justification to secure funding. Africa's oil and gas producing nations rely heavily on hydrocarbon export for more than 50% of their total income. And this is true with Nigeria as well. We rely on about 80% of petroleum products for our revenue as a country. However, in the past few years, Nigeria's crude oil production has consistently declined, resulting in the country's inability to meet its monthly OPEC production quota. While there are numerous factors leading to the struggle in Nigeria's production output, including but not limited to offtake challenges related to pipeline availability, crude oil theft, wellhead and flowline theft, aging facilities, outage of the Transfocados pipeline, tank top, and project finance. Project finance has become more and more important across the various companies within the country. Each with its unique driving factor. While the NOC is challenged with export supply chain, IOC struggle to secure JV funding and capital for planned work. Independents and marginal fields are challenged with securing bank loans, debt financing, and other financing methods, as confidence in repayment of such monies is at an all-time low, leading to further struggle in developing marginal fields. This symposium will attempt to outline key considerations to strengthen the justification in pursuit of alternate funding, navigate the negative perception related to doing business in the Nigerian upstream oil and gas ecosystem, highlight factors that improve investor confidence, and discuss methods to de-risk opportunities to a comfortable for potential investors. In this symposium, we have representatives from operators, NMPC, financiers alike, in order to have a robust discussion on the topic today. So today, I will be the host and the MC for the day. My name is Shegun Adefosudo. I'm currently the Special Projects Co-Chair for the SPE Lagos section, and it's my pleasure to spend the day with you all today. So we'll start off with a safety moment, and shortly I would introduce Hassana Salami, who is the Special Projects Chairperson for SPE Lagos, to take us through the safety moment. So Hassana, please.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Segun. Well, my safety moment is going to be very short. It's about safety tips during the festive period. As we all know, it's that time of the year when we relax and have fun. And this season comes with so much merriment and unfortunately crime. And the last thing you need to, is to become a victim of crime. So I've highlighted some major tips to help yourself and family a safe and memorable holiday. One is trouble spots. There are places notorious for criminal activities. Chances are the crime rate in areas like this, may increase during this festive season. So try as much as possible to avoid places like that. Avoid lonely or dark spots. Avoid places like this so you do not risk getting robbed. Also avoid late night if you can. It's better to be safe than sorry. And also get an outing body. Of course, we know the season is noted for a lot of shows and activities, to help you unwind. And these shows oftentimes, go on very late into the night. So you might want to attend few, but it is advisable you attend these shows in the coming of a friend or family member so that you can look out for each other in case you get caught up in the moment. And also keep purchase items out of sight, fit haul gifts, shopping bags in the boot of your car. Then don't drink and drive. This is one piece of advice that never goes out of style because it involves the ultimate life and death. If you must drink, do not drive for your own safety and that of other road users. And alcohol can also lower your mental alertness, so and that can affect your driving. So please know your limits. Finally, keep safe during this festive period and always safety first. Thank you, Segun. And back to you.
Thank you very much, Hassana, for a very timely and safety moment. We know how December and the Ember months can be in and around the Lagos state and other states in Nigeria as well. So please, let's keep safe. Let's enjoy our Christmas period and get back to a productive next year, which we expect to be a massive next year. Without further ado, we dive right into the national anthem in honor of our beloved country, Nigeria. So this was to honor our beloved country, Nigeria. And without further ado, we will jump into the welcome address by the current chairperson for the SPE Lagos section in the person of Mr. Oluwa B. Awotiku. B, please.
Thank you very much, Segun. Good morning, everyone. Good day from wherever you're joining us from. The SPE Africa Regional Director, Mrs. Ogolo Effiong, SPE Nigerian Council Chairman, Engineer Salahuddin M. Tahir, SPE Nigerian Council Beauty members, distinguished keynote speaker, dear panelists and moderator, Section 61 board members, oil industry captains, SPE members here present, ladies and gentlemen. It's my delight to welcome you to the second virtual technical symposium that SPE Lagos section is hosting this calendar year, and the first in this 2023-2024 SPE Lagos board year. Topic for discussion today: upstream oil and gas project finance, key indicators to strengthen justification to secure funding could not have come up for discussion at a better time. Nigeria's crude oil production is currently plagued by underinvestment, oil theft, and insecurity. According to the data obtained from Nigeria Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, the country's year-to-date crude oil production, excluding blended and unblended condensates, stood at 1.22 million barrels of oil per day as of October 2023. This is far less than Nigeria's 2024 OPEC quota of 1.5 million barrels of oil per day, even as Nigeria has not yet been able to meet our OPEC quota in 2023. While there has been concerted efforts to put oil theft and insecurity under control, with few debatable successes recorded to date, not much is being done about the underinvestment currently plaguing the oil and gas industry in Nigeria. With declining production in brownfields and assets, coupled with aging infrastructure, there's need to bring on new production from declining brownfields and greenfields. While the Petroleum Industry Act seeks to accelerate the development of new fields, and with targets for leaseholders to test deeper targets in brownfields, there is need to balance the aspirations of the PIA with the funds needed to develop the projects. Project finance has thus become a major issue that needs to be addressed. It is the wish of the planning committee and the entire board of SPE Lagos section that this symposium will meet up to its expectation and attempt to provide a way forward to securing the funding needed by all. Thank you very much for joining us today, and I wish us a successful deliberation. Over to you now, Shegun.
Well, thank you very much, Section Chair, for that charge. And we will take further remarks, none other from the SPE Nigeria Council Chairman in the person of Mr. Salahuddin Tahir. Mr. Tahir, please.
All right, thank you so much. Standing on existing protocols, good morning, all. I must commend SPE Lagos section for putting together this wonderful theme. I think this theme is coming, at the right time. We know that industry is being faced by a lot of challenges, especially in our home front, Nigeria. As the section chair mentioned, a lot of hindrances. We cannot even meet our OPEC quota. Yes, the crude oil production has been increasing of recent, but there's still a lot that is desired. Project financing, very, very critical. In today's world, where we're speaking about renewables, net zero, in fact, COP28, still at the final stages, everything now boils on environmental, social governance. These were not things that were considered in the past, but today, financing is becoming constricted. You take, for instance, you investor. What would your ordinary investor want? Your ordinary investor would want a guaranteed return on investment. That is the most critical thing to an investor. But then today, you are having certain considerations for finance. Considerations about the environment, consideration about the social welfare of the people, consideration around governance structures. So it's getting complicated. Now, for you to actually be able to access financing, You have to ensure that all these are in place. Now, ordinarily speaking, as an investor, if I step into the stage, I want to see, security. I want to see a guaranteed offtake of my product. I want to ensure that the funds I'm putting into the project that is being proposed has not only that value of return to me as an investor, but a value to the environment in itself, the people living around that area. I've seen the array of speakers here. I am very sure that by the end of this symposium, a lot will come out of this. I'm very confident because at least I know personally, I know 3 of them on that panel. I see Engineer Chikeze. I know he is well versed in this. He's a veteran. I'm sure that a lot will be from his own wealth of experience. Lagos section, the planning for a symposium, honestly, I must commend you. You have been in touch with all participants on a regular basis. In fact, this morning when I woke up, my email was clogged with, instructions on how to access this platform and all that I needed to do, the synopsis and so on and so forth. Wonderful reminders. I must commend the planning team. And I think it's something that other sections can borrow from. I would plead also that when this symposium is completed, and your committee is issued, please share it with the Nigerian Council. Please disseminate it across the other sections. I'm sure we would find it of much value. I don't intend to talk much, but I look forward to, an engaging forum. I will also urge the discussants to please open up and share your wealth of experience. This is a professional platform. We are all on knowledge dissemination, and we believe that your knowledge in the industry will help us to fashion out, ways towards opening up and assisting companies, investors, alike to meet on this platform, forge for the benefit of all our stakeholders. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to, give this opening remarks, and I wish you a very successful deliberation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, sir. We appreciate your comments and the charge, and we anticipate excellent deliberations. At a further demonstration of how important this symposium is, SPE Lagos not only has a sense of SPE Nigeria, but we also have regional presence in our midst. We thank you very much, Ms. Ogogo Effiong, for coming today. And we open up the floor to you for your remarks.
Thank you very much, Segun, I think I got the name. Thank you. Good morning, esteemed guests, panelists, and speakers, the members of the Society of Petroleum Engineers Lagos section, of course, my esteemed council chair, of course, all my esteemed speakers, the members, and everyone who had a hand in setting up this event here today. Having been part of a section for many years, I know how challenging it can be to line up such illustrious speakers. And as I look at the speakers, I read the bios that were sent to me earlier. Of course, immense respect for the collective expertise that's gathered here at this symposium today. The conference theme is very apt, and it reflects the industry's pivotal moment where we are right now. And I really must commend that our commitment to addressing these challenges is really commendable. The world, like Engineer Salahuddin mentioned, the world is grappling with the complexities of environmental sustainability, energy transition, but increasingly it makes our role even more critical than ever. The industry is facing an evolution of expectation from us, because on one hand, we are seen as the cause, but we are actually of the solution as well. We still remain an indispensable part of the global energy landscape. So it's forums like this that we find the synergy to navigate this balance between progress and even fiduciary and financial responsibility. So I just want to encourage us to engage in the discussions over the next few hours. I encourage you to please foster that open dialogue and collaborative thinking. Solutions and the challenges that are going to be posed by the energy landscape lie in our collective brilliance, and let's embrace that diversity of our experience, of perspective that are going to be presented, because it's through this diversity that we're going to be able to unlock this innovative approach to the challenges that we're even around funding. The theme of today encapsulates the essence of our shared responsibility in this sense. We will navigate the topic and we will try to come up with solutions that would chart the future of our industry. So in closing, I express my sincere gratitude to each and every one of you for your dedication to SPE. Your work extends beyond these virtual walls. You are influencing the trajectory of the industry, which in turn has an impact on the entire world as we know it. I wish you great deliberations, fruitful discussion, and enlightening insights, and of course, connections amongst ourselves. And I look forward to seeing more of this kind of creative discussions from the section. Thank you very much, and over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ogogo Effiong. We appreciate your remarks. So now we will be moving straight into the keynote speech. We see 106 people in the room. We thank you all for joining. We appreciate your presence. We believe these are 100 people interested or involved in the oil and gas industry. And we welcome you. We strongly believe that we're going to have a fantastic discussion today. For the keynote speech, we have Mr. Kayode Adegbulugbe, the COO of Green Energy International Limited. For those who don't know Green Energy, they are a beacon of light in the industry right now. They are one of those companies that snatched victory out of the jaws of challenges. They've done extremely well for themselves, and we are fortunate, and it's an honor and a pleasure to have its COO, who certainly played a very key role in the success they are enjoying today. Dr. Kayode Adegbulugbe is an accomplished energy expert entrepreneur, a leader undaunted with delivering serial #1 exploits. After graduating from the prestigious Obafemi Awolowo University with a BSc in chemical engineering, he proceeded to attend the University of Texas at Austin, where he earned a master's in petroleum engineering. To further broaden his horizon, he obtained an LLM in oil and gas law with distinctions from Robert Gordon University in Aberdeen. He has over 2 decades of experience in the oil and gas industry, working in production, completion, and drilling engineering roles with major international companies, including Shell and Chevron companies. His journey extends beyond geographical boundaries, as he has worked with distinction in Angola, United States, and Nigeria. He is currently the Chief Operating Officer of Green Energy International Limited, where he has propelled the company into achieving several serial #1 feats in the Nigerian oil and gas industry within a very short time. The company is producing an impressive 11,500 barrels of oil per day, currently the highest among marginal field operators in the country. In his role, he led the company to install and commission 12 million standard cubic feet modular LPG extraction plant at the Otakipo field, the first to be installed in the country. He is also the managing director of Atlantic Terminal Infrastructure Limited and the driving force behind the first onshore terminal to be constructed by an indigenous company in Nigeria, valued at $750 million, with an initial 750,000 barrels crude oil capacity expandable to 3 million barrels, which is the first new onshore terminal in Nigeria in over 50 years, the first to be non-IOC owned and operated. The terminal is on track to be completed 6 months ahead of schedule. Dr. Kayode is deeply involved in philanthropy and humanitarian work and sees it as a way of life. His Kajola Drive is more than a catch nickname. It's a testament to the financial support he has provided to countless individuals across the nation. He was conferred with honorary doctorate degree of science by University of Benin alongside other great achievers. It's an honor to have you here, Dr. Kayode, to be the keynote speaker for topic of the day, upstream oil and gas project finance, key indicators to strengthen justifications for funding. Dr. Kayode, you're welcome, sir. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'd like to first start, if I may, by thanking SPE Lagos for the unique privilege extended to me, the keynote speaker for this technical symposium. As earlier discussed, I'm convinced that this workshop is timely because over the last decade, our government has constantly articulated the goal of increasing the country's crude oil reserves to 40 billion barrels and daily production to 4 million barrels of oil per day. However, we have suffered a steady decline in production to current 1.2 million barrels of oil per day, and we have not been able to increase reserves to beyond 37 billion barrels. As we developed the Otakipo marginal field, we encountered similar challenges, which has been documented in literature, similar to the other indigenous companies. But we have been able to tactfully navigate these obstacles, and we believe we've been able to turn them into opportunities. As Nigerians, we've been able to devise some homegrown strategy to leveraging on our country's unique environment to attract incremental funding for our projects. Over the next 20 years, I'm glad that I'm able to share our midstream infrastructure development and implementation story with the hope that our peers may be able to pick up one or two nuggets from our humble and limited experience. So thank you very much. I guess we can go to the next slide, please. Or do I drive? Okay. You know, we're competing with IOCs for the same bucket of money of funds. Even before the transition to renewables, being an indigenous oil company, you're challenged with have a lot of exposures from 2013, 2014 to a lot of the industries in Nigeria to lend more to indigenous companies. Then, you know, it's easy for a bank to fund upstream because you drill your well, you could make your money back in 2 or 3 months. It's different when it's long-term, capital-intensive projects where you need 2 to 3 years moratorium and a 5-year payback time. There is that belief out there that indigenous company would not have the right technical and project experience to deliver projects on time without scope or budget inflation. What has done is that I know for many people you have per annum projects that are bankable that are not being funded. So what that means is that as Nigerians, as independents, as local service providers, we must come with homegrown solutions, and that's what we've done. And I'm again glad to be able to share this this morning. Next, please. For geotechnical marginal field, we are onshore. We are like 2 kilometers away from shoreline. That gives or provides two challenges. One, you have to manage production facilities, but also most of our evacuation costs are offshore. So that's we don't have the pipeline issues, pipeline losses issues, but it's a disadvantage because it comes with a high cost. Limited to 12,000 barrels a day. And if I may explain that, once you get a marginal field, there are a lot of subsurface uncertainties. So you really don't know whether it's a 5,000 barrels per day field or a 20,000 barrels per day field. We felt initially that our target would be like a 5,000 barrels per day field or a 10,000 barrels per day field. So we installed infrastructure to handle just that kind of production. But we're blessed in this country from a subsurface point of view. More data suggests that this field could deliver up to
Like we have some.
I had internet challenge there.
Okay. Here we go. We can hear you now, sir. Please go ahead.
Sorry about that. So apart from the fact that we cannot increase production beyond 12,000 barrels of oil per day, the cost of marine operation is very, very expensive. Whether you produce or not, you're incurring cost of shuttle tankers, cost of tugboats, cost of gunboats, and a crude hand charge with a third-party terminal operator, FSO. What that means is that the moment your production below a certain limit, your cost per barrel is unsustainable. And that's probably why you see a lot of marginal fields along the coastline, 10 kilometers less to the coastline, are stranded because at less than 5,000 barrels of oil per day, you will barely be breaking even. So this is the reason why, like I mentioned earlier on, we saw this as a challenge. We were able to, I think, outside the box, turn it into an opportunity. And it's the reason why we're installing the first onshore terminal in Nigeria. So it's almost, the reason is it's mainly for survival that we went through that. Next slide, please. So our scope initially was for the next stage of was to drill 8 wells, increase production to close to 30,000 barrels of oil per day, then install, I think at that time, when we installed a 2 million barrels onshore terminal that can be expanded to 3 million barrels. For an onshore terminal, you need to be able to evacuate or pump directly to the tanker. What that does is necessitates the construction of at least 20 to 23 kilometers export pipeline. You need enough draft for the export tanker. We performed cost estimate in 2019. By the time we started the project and obtained funding, the costs had increased significantly. Next. apologies to switch off the video so that for the bandwidth concerns. So again, for the topic is how should indigenous companies manage growth and be able to access funding. What we realized was we spent almost 4 years collaborating with international service partners, international banks, without being able to raise funds for it. You'll be able to speak passionately about your project. You will engage banks. You get promises, but we couldn't just close the deal. We did a lot of due diligences. The project was good on paper, performed all the design, obtained all the permits, and we couldn't secure funding. So we sat back and started learning from what we did, could do differently. The first thing we decided was there is a risk factor out there from a subsurface, from a cost, and just from the fact that you're an indigenous company. So what we decided to do was have a staged approach to the development. One is to reduce the risk, develop in-house capacity. So we decided to do 2 wells, which we did in 2022. What that does is reduce the subsurface uncertainty, increase our cash flow situation, and then we could use those cash flow as a part of our equity contribution towards the project. And what that does is the critical ratios that banks are concerned about, your debt to equity, all your coverage ratios will significantly improve. But more importantly will be this. No matter how good your subsurface department is and how confident you are with all your models, the banks will still impose a lot of contingencies on your data. So we did 2 wells, 6,000 barrels per day. But bank insisted on running our model at 10,500 barrels per day, even smaller wells. That reduces your loan ability, the ability to attract loans for the project. So going incremental, what it does is it reduces that subsurface, gives the banks more comfort, and then you can now step it up a little bit to the stage. Next slide, please. So I guess lesson from our first financing strategy is that do not despise humble beginning. We don't take it personal. We need to minimize project risk. The lenders are not interested in taking unnecessary risks. No matter how good you are, no matter the claims that you have, manage your ambitions and expectations until you have demonstrated competence and track record. When you are small, let your growth incremental processes, structures, and controls. And I'm going to mention about vendor financing later, but start building those strategic partnership balances from the beginning, which means that you need to prioritize long-term goal as against a short-term gain. Like this. Next slide. Okay, good. Yeah. We developed, again, just as a matter of fact, we developed in-house capacity to be able to structure deals and identify what makes deals work. And once you're able to do that, you will be able to sort of play games with your situation, because there is not a one-size-fits-all where we're indigenous, we're independent, we need to think outside the box. So we took advantage. For instance, this came from our commercial department. We took advantage of the law and the encouragement from in the new PIA that is encouraging companies to embark on midstream and infrastructure to service the oil and gas. And what we decided to do was to create an SPV that will handle the processing facilities, the storage facilities, and the export infrastructure. Even though we are the promoter. And what that does is that the PIA, the PPT was, I think, 85%. That's it, profit tax. By the time you throw that kind of a tax into your model, it was very difficult to come with a bankable project. So what we did was move all the expenses, and I'm an engineer by background. I'm going to try and explain this from a financial point of view. So humor me, please. So we just take our expenses from the upstream, we turn it into revenue in the midstream, and then that reduces the tax from the upstream, because we go from now a 45% to a 60% tax to 0% for the first 5 years. And I was talking to our project manager. The government will actually give you another 5 years of zero pioneer tax. So that's taking your, reducing your tax from 60%, most of it, to 0% for almost 10 years. That significantly changed the models, the ratio, and then we're able to convince the partner. I guess the lesson here will be that you have to create a multifunctional team of not just the engineers and the project managers, but you have to include the commercial team, the finance team, and then work with your lenders, because this is, for us, an in-house a breakthrough that we're able to sort of structure the deal to make this work. Next, please. You know, I used to work for Chevron, and in Chevron, we would not call companies that provide services contractors. We were trained to call them service partners, because that's what they are. Like I mentioned earlier on, we have to leverage our Nigerianness. And because there's a way, if I go to the UK and I make a presentation on a project, versus if I'm discussing with a local bank or a contractor like Akasa, the message could be taken differently, because we're home, we know who we are, and we can always confirm some claims, because at the end of the day, it's a very small industry. Without our ability to convince Kakasa and other service providers, service partners, to provide vendor financing for this project, we will not be where we are today as a company. And what that does is it reduces the debt that you're going to be needing from the lenders. It gives the lenders comfort that somebody else is willing to take some of the risk. But more importantly, it fosters deeper relationship, because once we can get this done, the next deal out there will be easier to discuss with companies like Kakasa. And from the Kakasa's point of view and the other service partners, you know, we all want to make money. We all want to generate profit. So if they don't have projects they are doing, they will not be in business for a long time. So it's a win-win scenario. It's all about integrity. It's all about, you know, the way I discuss with my team will be, if you're going to be going to the doctor, do not hide information. So when you're dealing with service partners, you have to be able to show them the numbers and be able to also understand where they're coming from. Kakasa project managed all the onshore terminal, the onshore portion. That's a lot of projects. The tanks, the pumps, the latch unit, the project management, the generators, everything else for us. Apart from them providing funding, it also reduces our project management interface, because now we're dealing with only one contractor that will now supervise all the other contractors that works with them. So that's our story with CACASA. And I guess the message here will be that leverage on relationship. Do not overlook that there is huge opportunity, because they have banks that trust them that they're going to deliver. What you're doing is you're leveraging on their relationship with their banks and getting your project funded. Next, please. We just have one slide on vendor financing. Is that despite the fact that I mentioned it's all about integrity and relationship, the details could be nuanced. You still have to do the documentation, because you can imagine if you enter into a vendor financing with a factor that is not financially capable, you already entered the project, you're going to have enough problems if their capacity to deliver is suspect. We have to give them some security guarantee that will give them comfort that if we can't pay on schedule per agreement, that they have some way of getting paid. But more importantly, though, is that, like I mentioned earlier on, when we were trying to structure the deal with the banks, we knew this field could deliver like 10,000 barrels of oil per day from 2 wells. The banks insisted on running it at 6,000 barrels per day, and I think it was on $50 per barrel. There must be an understanding, because the service provider is also taking a risk on your behalf. There must be an understanding between the operator, the indigenous operator, and the service partner, that if situations improve, let's say you get a 10,000 barrels of oil per day, and your oil price is above $50 per barrel, that you're going to be able to go back to that contractor and reduce the burden that the contractor is carrying on your behalf. What that does is reduces your cost of financing, but more importantly, the next time you call on that contractor, I like to believe that he will be very eager to deal with you on even a more favorable terms. Next, please. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier on, we spent almost 4 to 5 years trying to raise money. So the chart here on the right side was how we eventually were able to come to terms with who we are today. We know where we like to be, but we have to come to who we are. We're a small company. We're viewed as high technical risk, corporate governance, project management, a lot of all the other risks that you can think about. In IOCs and the national oil companies for the same bucket of funds. What we realized was that the banks, you go, you have the right, drink red wine, steak. They're very nice people, bankers, but we were not getting the deal closed. So we stood back and realized that the time that they have to spend with us is not adequate. So you need to be able to realize that I'm not working for Chevron again, I'm not working for Shell again. So you got to be humbled by your situation and realize that the same amount of effort that the banks will spend on $100 million, on a $200 million deal, is the same amount of effort that they're going to be spending on a $2 billion deal with Shell, with Chevron. They receive payments based on the magnitude of transaction. So if you imagine you're going with them, you have they still have to do all the due diligences, build the banking models, generate information memorandum, which could be almost sometimes 150 pages, and they still go through all their accounts. For a company that needs $50 million, that doesn't have the track record of delivering projects. So we spent 4 years, we knew that we were going to get this deal closed. And then, so what we did will be on the next slide, please. Thank you. So we felt that we will not, it will be difficult till we can demonstrate capacity and have a track record to move from the fourth quadrant, the red, which is the no, to a yes or a, we just wanted to move from no to a maybe. So what we did as a team, and that's a test to Nigerians. I'm proud to be a Nigerian. You know, it's only in Nigeria, I think, that you could pick an engineer and give him 3 months to go and be a financial modeler. Well, because we are hustlers by nature, we just go. So what we did was do all the work, and I mean this, we have to do all the work for the banks and get it ready for credit committee. We did at that time, I think during COVID, was just 5, including myself and maybe 4 of us, went for one of the most rigorous training on finance modeling, which I think was
Looks like we have a network out again. Let's just give it
apologies for that.
one.
Am I?
Yeah, awesome. We can hear you now.
Online?
Yes, sir, you are live.
Oh, sorry, apologies for that. Yeah, so what we did was engage the financial industry to identify the trainings that are critical to developing in-house capacity. And I think one of the most critical training for us was to be able to build the model, because it's from your banking model that you would know the project is bankable. And if it's not bankable, you'll be able to know what to tweak and to what extent to tweak it to make it work. And then you can also communicate those leverages that you're manipulating to a bank. The training went for would have I think a success rate of maybe 40%. I'm proud to tell you that all the green energy staff, maybe 5 or 6 of us at that time, that went training. It was a one-time attempt, and we got qualified. Again, for me as a Nigerian, that's a big deal, because we took engineers, we took finance. I think we had a commercial team. In the past, it would take them almost 2 to 3 years to build a model and be able to tell you how much equity you need. It takes that long, because you have to first explain the project to them, and they must have time for you. Then they must have time to develop all those models and documentation. So our recommendation will be realize that you're not going to command as much time as you used to do when you're working for the IOCs. Be ready to do the dirty work, develop in-house capacity. We have a one-stop shop now to deal with everything. So all we need now is 1 day. We just beg for 1 day to sit down with the bank, bring them to Abuja or anywhere else in the world, explain the project, and give them everything they need to move to credit. And I think that's one of the major reasons that today you will come across as if by the time you go to these banks, they're ready to move a project to closure. Next, please. So the outcome of all this, in our humble opinion, is that within 18 months, we've been able to close almost 6 deals. The vendor financing, optical financing, short-term facilities from local banks, to move our project incrementally from 3.5 thousand barrels of oil per day to 1,500 barrels per day. We believe that hopefully before the end of next year, we should be getting close to 20. We have also, like I mentioned earlier on, the moment we got that pleasant surprise from our wells, we went back to our benefactor, the service partner, to reevaluate the payment schedule. Right now, the need to pay a year after the project has been eliminated. If the project finishes in 20 months, we'll finish paying in 20 months. That's what I mentioned earlier. It's just that's the integrity, that's the openness. And I like to say that's the African spirit that we can use to work, we can work with ourselves to come with some solutions that are homegrown. For instance, if I have a vendor finance project, a vendor financing deal with Kakasa, all the documentation may not be more than 10 pages. If it's a vendor financing with an international company, it could be 100 pages and maybe 5 lawyers all over the world. But the way we could keep doing this is by honoring agreements, and when situations change, before you pay back before you pay the sponsors, remember those guys, remember your service partners, and then be able to also go back to them and make their life easier. We've been able to pay off the local banks, because what happened was, and again, this is for me, I'm proud to say this. It was no foreign bank or institution was willing to fund this. It's only a local bank that you can have conversations with that are a bit more, how do I say it, a bit more personal, with a personal touch. We've been able to pay off the local bank even within the period of moratorium. Because what happened, success has a lot of friends. The moment we started the project and the international investors realized that we're going to start this project and they know the value, they started chasing us with money. And I'm using chasing because that's what they did. So we now got the funds from them, paid off our local bank, discharged the bank guarantee. And right now, we're proud to say that we're 6 months ahead of schedule. And if everything goes well, by June next year, we'll be at a stage to be commissioning this very, very complex project. Next, please. This is the final slide. In conclusion, we're on track to completing the construction of the first onshore terminal and export infrastructure in Nigeria. It involves the onshore, it involves the offshore, it involves the regulatory, it involves community, it involves several interfaces. Over 50 years, and the first to be constructed by an indigenous operator. Our intent, like I mentioned earlier on, is to first service our field so that we can increase production, reduce our cost of operation. But more importantly, will be that as Nigerians, and our field is in OML 11, there are several other fields around that area. Almost each of them bigger than, in terms of reserves, than Otakipo, that will benefit from having this infrastructure. We can imagine what that does, in terms of reserves and production rate increase for our country, because it don't. Within the next 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years, if the West has their way, we will not be, we'll have all these reserves locked locked-in potential, similar to what we have with our coal in Enugu. We started the project in Q4 2023 with a take-up grant from a local bank, Fidelity Bank, and we're on track to delivering the first 500,000 barrels by Q2 2024, 6 months out of schedule. And the last point I mentioned here is that we want to showcase to the world that Nigerian indigenous operators are in a hurry and that we can deliver such complex E&P infrastructures ahead of schedule, even faster than the IOCs can. Because all the time we go and make presentation, the stories that they give us or the feedback will be that in Nigeria, projects are notorious for taking longer, maybe sometimes 5 years or 10 years. I think with our story and with the story of all the other indigenous companies that are really doing very good out there, we are gradually changing the mindset so that the next generation of E&P companies will have it easier to sell their projects and obtain funding. Thank you very much. I apologize for the IT issues. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Kayode. We appreciate what you have shared with us. Truly inspiring, the story of green energy, the effort that you and your team have put in. You have said what your for potential financiers. Opportunity was to be able to achieve everything that was done. Your team also realized that competition was real. There was a limited amount of funds and a lot of opportunities where those funds could go. As such, you repositioned to upskill and help the bank with the processing to make it extremely simple. So the conversations can be simpler and all engagements can be simpler as well. After which, you were able to secure multiple deals in a short amount of time. After the de-risking, after the vendor financing, after the upskilling and effective communicating with the financiers, and you were able to secure multiple deals and get your project back to be 6 months ahead of schedule. One key thing you said, and I paraphrase, is to keep it simple and to honor agreements, be people of integrity, and have that collaboration and alignment in place with your service partners and all your partners all involved. And possibly in your case, with fortune, surprises in production, recollaboration, a lot more will come from green energy. We thank you very much, Mr. Kayode, for sharing. Your company is truly an inspiration to the Nigerian oil and gas space. I am personally very inspired by green energy and very excited about what's coming out of your company. For the online community, there's a Q&A function. You can ask your questions. We will move on the program, and these questions could be asked in the Q&A section of the event. So without further ado, we'll dive right into the panel session where we have our distinguished panelists and the keynote speaker discussing further on the topic of the day. First, I'd like to introduce everyone to the moderator for the day, Mr. Nola Desalu, who is an alumni of Harvard Business School. Not that alone, he also studied at the University of Lagos, surveying and geoinformatics engineering. He's an ex-banker with 15 years of experience in retail banking, corporate banking, and investment banking. He has worked with Oceanic Bank, First Bank, Nova, and most recently with Sterling Bank. His experience spans across downstream, midstream, upstream sectors of the oil and gas industry. He's the MD and CEO of IAM Limited, a wholly owned indigenous Nigerian company that provides financial consultancy to oil and gas companies in Africa. IAM Limited is currently working with local and foreign institutions to provide financial partnership via equity debt to oil and gas businesses in the African continent. Our distinguished participants, please give a virtual hand clap and a warm welcome to our moderator for today. On the panel, we are humbled by the presence of Mr. Chikezie Nwosu, a longtime friend of SPE Lagos and SPE Nigeria together. He's an experienced senior executive with over 30 years local and international experience in the oil and gas industry with demonstrated expertise in management of upstream oil and gas projects, new business development, divestments and acquisitions, midstream gas and downstream refining. Mr. Nwosu has worked with leading international companies and retired from Walter Smith Petroman Oil Limited in March 2003 after delivering the first 5,000 barrel per day modular refinery in Nigeria and leading the acquisition of Block EG-23 in Equatorial Guinea in 2020 and Asa Marginal Field in 2021, the company on its growth trajectory. In April 2023, Mr. Nwosu returned to his parent company, Tolea BV, as the EVP Business Development and founded HSI Energy Resources Nigeria Limited as Tolea's in-country affiliate. He also currently serves on the advisory board to the chairman of Heirs Holding Oil and Gas Nigeria Limited. He holds a bachelor's in engineering physics from the University of Ife and master's in physics from Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, and is a member of several professional organizations, including the Society of Petroleum Engineers, member SPE Nigeria Board of Trustees, chairman of the board of SISL, member Nigerian Association of Petroleum Explorationists, NAPE, and currently serves on the advisory council of the Nelson Mandela Institute, African University of Science and Technology, Abuja. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm hand virtual clap for Mr. Chikezie Nwosu. Also, we have our distinguished guest from the NNPC, Mr. Murtala Ahmed. He's the GM Finance and Investment for NNPC. Mr. Murtala is the head of finance and investment at NNPC, a chartered accountant with over 20 years experience through financial reporting, treasury, and tax functions within NNPC, NPDC, which is NEPL, Nigeria LNG Limited, and NNPC Frontier Exploration Services, FES. Effective 2021, he assumed the role of Manager Finance and Investment and recently the Head of Finance and Investments, responsible for coordinating various strategies to securing finance through the entire value chain, upstream, midstream, and downstream of NNPC. Notable amongst these initiatives are project yield financing for refineries rehabilitation in the tune of $1 billion, various pre-export financing in excess of $4 billion, other project financings in the region, about $3 billion, funding and technical services arrangements, FTSAs. He leads various strategies at securing much needed financing for critical assets development for company growth and expansion process. He is married with children. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome for NNPC's representative, Mr. Murtala. Also, we have in the house, Mrs. Olajumoke Ajayi, also a friend of SPE, a friend of our sister organization, NAPE as well. She's the current managing director of Ingentia Energies Limited. She holds a bachelor's degree and a master of science degree in applied geophysics from Federal University of Technology, Akure, and the University of Lagos, respectively. She started her career with Mobile Producing Nigeria Unlimited. Before joining Ingencia Energies, she worked in Asharami, the upstream arm of Sahara Group, Centrica Resources, which is British Gas, Peak Petroleum Limited, and DigiConnect Consulting. At Asharami Energy, a subsidiary of Sahara, she was the exploration manager and the general manager exploration, spearheading the exploration and production team that successfully drilled and delivered Asharami Energy's first 5 wells, among other achievements. She innovatively trailblazed upon her elevation to the position of managing director at a time when oil price plunged to less than $30, leading Asharami Energy from an exploration company to producing about 20,000 barrels per day. Mrs. Olajumoke Ajayi is known to innovatively deliver quality projects while saving costs and without compromising safety and security. Mrs. Olajumoke Ajayi is a member of the American Association of Petroleum Geologists, AAPG, Society of Exploration Geophysicists, SEG, and the Nigerian Association of Petroleum Explorationists, NAPE. She is a past vice president of NAPE, the first female to hold that position in its 40 years of existence. Mrs. Olajumoke is a recipient of numerous local and international awards. She was recognized by AfricanShapers.com as one of the first 100 outstanding female executives in the African oil and gas industry, rated one of the first 50 most inspirational energy executives by Africa Oil Week and Lean in Energy 2021, and rated in 2022. As an outstanding woman in energy by Women in Maritime and Energy, just to mention a few. She is committed to philanthropy and volunteering for exalted causes. She's passionate about supporting children, women, emerging young entrepreneurs, and young professionals. She is a member of the Governing Council of Elizade University and a board member of Shikan Nigeria Limited. As a seasoned oil and gas professional, Mrs. Olajumoke Ajayi brings in her vast experience to join the team at Ingencia Energies Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome for Mrs. Olajumoke Ajayi. Finally, we have the presence of Mr. Peter Olowononi. You're very welcome, Mr. Peter, from Afrexim Bank, Head of Client Relations for Anglophone West Africa. Mr. Peter is the Head of Client Relations, which in Anglophone West, which includes Nigeria, Ghana, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Gambia, and Cape Verde for Afrexim Bank. He joined the bank in July 2015 as Manager BD, Anglophone West Africa, and in March 2019 was appointed the role of Head of Client Relations for Anglophone West Africa region. Currently oversees client relations and is responsible for the execution of the business development plans encompassing trade finance, guarantees, specialized finance, advisory and capital markets, corporate banking, export development, and project finance, with a circa $10 billion portfolio as at Q3 2023. Peter holds a certificate in project management from GWU George Washington University, USA, certificate of finance in international trade from the University of Malta, and an MBA from the University of Lagos, Nigeria. He has structured transactions and availed credits across the oil and gas industry, manufacturing, maritime infrastructure, aviation, financial institutions in excess of $15 billion in the last 5 years. He serves as a global advisory board chair for the Social Capital Impact Group, which harnesses the power of philanthropy and private sector strategies to uplift people out of poverty. He was also a non-executive director at the African Medical Center of Excellence Limited, a subsidiary of the Afrexim Bank, developing a world-class hospital in Abuja, Nigeria, in partnership with the King's College Hospital, UK. We're honored by your presence, Mr. Peter Olowononi. Ladies and gentlemen, we now welcome all of the panelists into the panel session. We also welcome our moderator, and we welcome our keynote speaker once again to commence discussions on the topic of the day, upstream project finance, key indicators to strengthen justification for funding. Moderator.
All right. Thank you very much, MC, for the brief introduction you just gave. And of course, I'm elated to be part of this noble seminar, which is still ongoing. And special thanks to SPE Lagos for putting this together and making it happen. Very quickly, we have the question and answer session of the seminar. And I'd like to start by saying that it needs not to be overemphasized that the oil and gas sector, am I being heard?
Loud and clear.
All right, thank you. Yeah, we need not overemphasize the fact that the oil and gas sector is indeed underfunded. And in the words of Austin Navarro during the energy conference, he says that if we are to take our current oil production from 1.2 million barrels per day, where it is now, to an estimated target of 4 million, then we should be looking at a minimum of $25 billion of investment into the country per annum for the next 10 years. And that is just an estimate. But of course, the big question is, where is the funding going to come from? Is it going to come from the government? Is it going to come from the commercial banks? Or is it going to come from foreign direct investment? So now that brings me to the first question, which I have for all our panelists here today. And the question is, in your view, what would you consider the biggest challenge, in securing funds from the obligors in the oil and gas space today? What is the biggest challenge of our oil and gas companies in terms of securing funds from investors or from the commercial banks? And how do you think we can eliminate these challenges? So in no particular order, I would like to start from Mr. Peter Olowunoni. Mr. Peter, I'd like you to lend your voice on this question in terms of the challenges that oil and gas companies are going through in terms of fundraising and how those challenges can be addressed.
I don't know if you can hear me very well.
Yes, we can, absolutely.
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be on this panel. And very, very topical issues have been discussed. What we have seen, the Afreximbank, of course, as you know, we are one of the biggest supporters of oil and gas financing in Nigeria. What we've seen in the last years is there has been a gradual withdrawal of the key players. When I mean key players, I mean the financial institutions who typically have provided financing into the oil and gas space in Nigeria. We used to, in the past, we would see the likes of Standard Chartered Bank very aggressively driving a lot of the financing. We had the like of the ING, Commerce Bank, Natixis, Mauritius Commercial Bank, together with ourselves and the Nigerian banks, whom were typically providing financing in support of development of marginal fields, expansion, and field development plans to basically ramp up production. But what we've seen is because first, most of the international banks have pulled out and are re-strategizing and refocusing how they direct their balance sheet. This has generally now created a huge gap, which has not been filled till date. With the Nigerian banks, of course, due to the macroeconomic headwinds and the paucity in dollar liquidity, they've generally shied away from taking on new dollar exposures, not necessarily because it's to the oil and gas sector, but just because there's been a paucity of liquidity for them to be able to commit their balance sheets and how they can do. So whether we like it or not, from downstream, the trading guys, to the midstream, to infrastructure, refinery, and processing, gas to power, gas to LNG, gas to fertilizer, we've seen a disappearance of liquidity. And even on the upstream side, what has now happened is that banks are now extremely choosy, very picky, because now you want to be sure that your money can go in and come out very quickly. And that has really impacted the amount of liquidity available to the financing of the upstream oil and gas project. So that's, and Adriola, maybe you will help me. I'm not sure I got the question completely because I was initially doubling on a call. But I, at least in terms of the challenges that has befallen the upstream oil and gas sector, I would say first is the impact of the drive for clean environmental advocacy that has pulled out international financing from our space. And then second is the current macroeconomic headwinds that has hit the country, has led to a paucity in the liquidity, dollar liquidity that is available for oil and gas financing. So I would say these are the two major constraints that has shrunk liquidity available for financing oil and gas projects in Nigeria. So I don't know if the question was two-part, but this was the part I picked.
Thank you so much. Very valid, well put together response from you there. You clearly itemized the reason, the challenges, what has caused, the shrink in availability of funding in the sector. But okay, now I would like to go to Mrs. Olajumoke Ajayi. Would you like to tell us what are the steps that can be taken to stem the tide of these challenges, which we've seen, recurring in the oil and gas space? What necessary steps that we can take, as different companies? What are the steps that the banks can take? What are the steps that the companies themselves can take, maybe to make themselves more attractive to investors? And, what are the steps that the regulatory bodies themselves can also take? So, Mrs. Olajumoke, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Okay, still morning. Good morning, everyone. And please permit me to adopt the existing protocol. Before I answer that question, I must commend the organizers of this event for a well thought out theme. There can't be a better time than now to discuss this topical subject. When we talk of financing, I will talk from the point of an indigenous company, a marginal field operator. As we all know, crude oil and gas are the major source of energy and income for the country and Africa at large. And if you have a marginal field, the first thing you think of is to fund. And funding is an essential factor to sustain the oil and gas industry, as we all know. But financiers would not invest in non-producing assets. So that's one of the issues operators face. You take up a marginal field that is still green. You are yet to, bring oil to the surface. You've not gotten to first oil. You're trying to source finance, and the investors themselves, will be eager to, once they invest there, they should have an idea of when they'll have return on investment. So that's one major challenge that operators face when sourcing finance. I will share some of what we experience here in Nigeria, where the operators of Ecolon field. So another thing that investors look out for, especially after the outage of Avocados pipeline in 2015, 2016, it was down for like 18 months. The first thing investors look out for after that incident was not only to have assurance that the operator has secured an evacuation route, they also ask for alternative evacuation route to be sure that once they invest, they will recover their costs, within a short period of time. So one other very key thing that can give that assurance for you, no matter how prolific your asset is, for you to secure finance, is to have in place your crude evacuation strategy, both main and alternative evacuation strategy. And one other key thing is that we must, as operators, is not only to bid for assets and be an oil and gas assets operator. We must carry out our technical due diligence on the assets to be sure that the asset is one that is viable, that can attract investors, because most people go for assets, they don't carry out proper evaluation of what is in place. Sometimes they overrate what the asset holds. And when the investor comes, they also will carry out their own diligence. And when they see that the volume that is in place is far lower than what you are carrying, it's also a major problem. So operators, marginal indigenous operators, must make sure that you plan your work program, that is doable, and assemble strong teams, both technical, commercial, and otherwise, that will help you package the story. Investors, when they look at it, they will be interested in putting their finances into it. And another thing that can also help to source finance, collaboration. And when I talk of collaboration, if you are talking to investors and you demonstrate that, okay, this is the field, this is what I am doing to ensure I crash the project delivery timeline by collaborating with operators around me. I'm talking of evacuation route. I have one or an operator beside me, I can latch on to their pipeline. I have collaboration with service providers, bring in operators that are, clustered around a particular area. Have discussion with a service provider, come up, have a contract with the service providers, and plan your work program in such a way that one contract can deliver all this work, and so doing the costs will reduce and you will need minimal finances. So if all this can be demonstrated, you can have impress an investor that will come in to invest. And you should also identify all possible risks and come up with mechanisms by which this risk can be mitigated, because you have cost overrun risk, you have project completion time risk, you have performance operation risk, crude evacuation, which I've just mentioned, regulatory permits, the risk associated with that. Have this holistic plan, demonstrate to the investors that all this has been thought through and you have them in place. And this can also encourage investors to put down their money. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that crash course on how to attract investment. Very well said. I think I can add anything to what you've just said. So thank you so much for that response. So I would like to move on to Mr. Chikezie Nwosu. Mr. Chikezie, I understand that your company, is very well experienced in and focused on development and operation of management of upstream oil and gas assets, among many other services that you render. So my question to you is, how do you choose the assets in which you intend to partner with? What are the things that you look out for in a business or in an asset before you decide and say, I want to partner with this business, or I want to help to develop this asset? What are those criterion that you look at that make an asset appealing to you? And, is it just specific to upstream assets alone, or do you also look at the midstream and downstream? So, Mr. Chike, is over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Desalu. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, very clearly.
Okay, so I will summarize my comments on this with what I call the 10 commandments that we use in our key considerations for partnering. And let me just mention, it's not only about upstream E&P. As you mentioned, midstream, and we are encouraging downstream refining as an alternative route for exports, not only because of the impact of having these petroleum products in Nigeria, consumed in Nigeria, and stopping to treat oil and gas as commodities for exports, but also for gas processing, to turn these into LPG, CNG, and all other products. So our drive is to domesticate the production and consumption of energy as much as possible. So what are we looking for? And it's not different from, the challenges that, all companies will face when they go to look for funding, which were mentioned earlier. So we your ESG compliance, okay? We want to make sure that these companies have a view to the global trends on energy transition and sustainability. We want to make sure that the environment is considered that they're investing in. So we're looking for companies that will already have a gas solution for flared gas from day one, and not determine that they're going to start from day one flaring gas and impacting the environment. We want to make sure that social investing is part of it as well. How are you in the communities around you for your freedom to operate and your license to operate? And governance is important as well. So we do a deep dive KYC on governance, because too often we see these independent companies or indigenous companies be founder governed, in which case the founders of the company have too much of an influence on how decisions are made and not proper corporate governance. So when we do that KYC, we're looking out for how decisions are made. Do you have a properly functioning board where decisions are made there? What are the rules around how decisions are made by your board? Is there any overarching or overimpose there that can override whatever it is that would normally be proper corporate governance? So the first one is around ESG. The second one is around sustainability, like I mentioned. There are some specific SDG issues that come up. For me, in particular, a lot of people here will know that if I don't see SDG 5 reflected in your organization, I'm not coming near that. SDG 5 is about gender equality. So we look carefully at this makeup of your organization to make sure that you're not excluding women, because they bring in a particularly different narrative to the organizations, and it's been shown that typically the impact of women in that organization will lead to increased return on investment. We look at whether or not the energy that you're going to deliver is affordable and clean, SDG 7. We look at your climate concerns. We look at sustainability in terms of how you're going to move ahead. The third one is competitive landscape. Where are you in this landscape? And it's not only around the upstream projects, midstream and downstream. We look at the competitive landscape. So we do an independent project and market feasibility study, and we use some of the top companies to do this. Currently, PwC, KPMG, and the like. We look at the value the owners are putting forward, because if we're going to invest there, we want to see what value you're putting forward, what risk are you taking yourself. Even funding partners, I'm happy person has spoken. So even funding, expect you to be able to demonstrate 30 to 35% of value, either in terms of cash or something you're putting on the table, so that you're a skin in the game. So we want to make sure you have value. Then we look at the robustness of your project economics against several parameters. Some of them are outside your control: oil and gas prices, CapEx, OpEx overruns, your project schedule, and your facilities uptimes. We look at stakeholder management, like I mentioned, your community LTO, freedom to operate, regulatory requirements and compliance, and other external and government issues. Because a lot of these projects, from time to time, they run into
Hello?
tax fiscal benefits. Yeah. So we take a look at what tax regime you're working under. And again, the green energy person talked about very creative methods of reducing your tax burden. We look at the physical terms under which you're operating as well. So this is not only for Nigeria.
Okay.
Clear, cost-effective, and transparent SPE processes with vendor partnerships. And some of those vendors can also fund some services for shared value in the assets as well. We look at your project management, your EPCI, your pre-commissioning, commissioning, operations, reliability and assurance, maintenance processes, risk and opportunity management. And
Hello, Mr. Chikeze, are you there?
stress are your known knowns you asked about, you're aware of, what are your known unknowns?
Have a bit of network challenges.
Because am I back? Can you hear me?
Yes, you are.
Where did you lose me?
Up to a few seconds ago, we were hearing you clearly.
Okay, so I was talking about how we stress test some of these investments, and we talk about the known knowns. We want to make sure that there are things both us and the partners are aware of and understand. There are known unknowns, things we're aware of but don't understand, but we have a pathway towards understanding them. There are unknown unknowns, things we understand but are not aware of, are blind spots. We need to be very clear about where those blind spots are, because they could come bite you later on. And last, the most difficult ones, the unknown unknowns, things we are neither aware of or understand. We have to have something around how to deal with those kind of issues. I think a lot of funding parties also do this. So those 10 commandments and our stress testing are what will determine whether or not we go forward with of these kind of investments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chikeze. Very well said. I'm sure you would have this in a readable format for intending for the attendees who are already asking questions, and for for the rest of us after now. But very valid. Yeah, those are very vital points, and they are learning points, of ways in which businesses can make themselves stand out. And in a way you can say it's a method of de-risking your business. If you're able to tick all these boxes that you've itemized, your business will be highly de-risked. All right, so we have a couple of other questions, but I would like to go into the Q&A box. We have some questions from the attendees as well. First comment is from Wariboko George. Says, I've taken time to follow the company Green Energy for some years now, but I want to ask, how do you manage to get needed financing for your field development? Okay, I think Dr. Kayode already extensively spoke on that, on the different ways. He mentioned CACASA providing some section of the financing, and he also mentioned, a few other things. But okay. So I would like to go to the next question from P. eBay. It says, thank you, Kayode, for that beautiful presentation on how your company was able to turn around the table from the point where foreign lenders are now chasing your company with money. Quick question, he says, can you talk a little bit more about your company's experience with the government partners during this process? What advice do you have? I hope Dr. Kayode can hear me, because it seems like you might have to lend your voice here.
Loud and clear. I can hear you loud and clear.
Great, thank you. So he said, quick question. Can you talk a little bit more about your company's experience with government partners during this process? What advice do you have for other upcoming oil and gas companies in Nigeria who may not have the same level of experience that you have now? Okay, interesting. And lastly, before I ask other panelists, last question for you, Dr. Kayode. What are the integrated models requested by Nigerian banks to fund oil and gas upstream projects in Nigeria? I think that's a question for all the panelists. But I think you can take it from the first question, talking about how you got funding for your field development, and then how you were able to handle the government partners during the process. So Dr. Kayode, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna have to leverage on what Dr. Chigeze mentioned earlier on. It's for us. It's all about collaboration. So initially, we knew that 100% of zero is still zero. So we were ready to relinquish almost 40% of equity at that time because we didn't have the finance, we didn't have the technical ability, we just had the asset to relinquish that to a technical and funding partner that will get you to first oil. And then beyond first oil, since you are the operator of your asset, that's where you need to start a bit more assertive in the market and then showcase who you are as a company and who you want the industry to believe what you stand for. So I think that's what we did in the first phase. And right now, like I mentioned earlier on, it's all about performance, managing, capital stewardship, and then delivering, at least making sure that you deliver of the expectation of the investment partners. In terms of how we've been able to handle government, I like to say we have been quite lucky. We're marginal field operators, so it's a sole risk. So our technical and financial partner is also is a private company, so we don't have a lot of we're very aligned in delivering value and delivering very quickly because we're private entities. The only government entity that we deal with will be the NUPRC. I know probably they're not here today, but I must commend the new focus on the NUPRC on being a business enabler. For instance, one of the challenges we would have faced will be regulatory issues. I'm trying to use the right, trying to be politically correct, but we enjoy better relationship with our regulator than the IOCs. So I could go to them and say, hey, I know you have to go for factory acceptance test, but I don't have funds for 20 days or going every other month. So they always work with you. We get regulatory approvals fast. You could imagine you're starting a terminal project in January this year, and you want to deliver the project with all the regulatory permits in 18 months. Share don't even consider that. So the only government entity we deal with is NUPRC, and that is a sharp focus, I think, a renewed focus on making sure that there are enablers for the private sector. You mentioned integrated models. I'm not sure if he's talking about banking models. I guess
that
what
question. Okay.
If it's banking model, I think the best way to handle that will be I could share some of the trainings that we went for and also some examples of banking models that we built for our project. If that's the person could contact me after the engagement. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Are you sharing that pro bono? Okay.
It's pro bono.
All right. So yeah, very valid points. I noted when you said you had to give up 40% of your stake. That was huge, but sometimes you have to make such sacrifices at the early stages of business. So I'm sure, the attendees heard that loud and clear. And thank you very much for your feedback. So the next question is for Mrs. Olajumoke Ajayi. And the question is from Yusuf Akimiade. And the question is, kindly share some financing issues which you faced before and during the formation of the SPV in Gensha Energy in the recent marginal bid round. What are the steps taken in tackling them? Very interesting question for Mrs. Olajumoke. Personal fan of Ingentia, of SunTrust and all the partners, and I'm proud of their success story. So please tell us.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. As we all know, Egbolon Field is operated by Ingentia Energies Limited, and it's the biggest of all the marginal fields. And we have 5 shareholders. So when we took up the assets, one would expect that every bank, both locally and internationally, will be running after Egbolon Field to invest in it and fund. So we started trying to source for financial partners. And what we, in summary, what we got to see was that no matter how prolific your asset is on paper, why I said on paper, it's a company operated, drilled those wells, booked the reserve, and it is based on what you see on paper that you look at the logs, you interpret the seismic, until you bring the oil to the surface and you flow it for a certain period of time, you can't say it is proven. So the investors, bankers, investors that we were talking to, they saw it as an asset with huge reserve, but they wanted it proven. See it at the surface, flow it for a period of time, evacuate it. Then the funds can start chasing you to help with the development of the field. So we gave ourselves I think we gave ourselves few months, gave ourselves 3 months to source, and we found that we met with over 15 banks, both locally and internationally, and the same thing was what they all repeated. They were willing to fund, but they wanted us to get to first oil first and bring oil to the surface. So after like 3-4 months of trial, the next thing we did was, my shareholders, we had a meeting and they all decided to put down equity, equity funding. So we cash called the shareholders, and within a period of time, the cash was put into the bank, and we started the process that we need to first oil. And I can confidently tell you that if you very soon, just wait, just look out to hear first oil from Ingentia Energies Limited, because we are in the process of getting to first oil anytime soon. Thank you. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much. I must confess, as an ex-banker, I'm a victim of, or I'm guilty as charged. I remember I was pushing the campaign for Egbolon Field and trying to get financing, but just like you said. But in fairness to the banks, some of the challenges that the banks also face is the sectoral limits challenge, where they are already so exposed to a particular sector, and then they can only take on so much lending. And also because of some of the huge non-performing loan portfolios that some of these banks are already carrying in a sector. So, the risk appetite begins to wane and reduce over time until those non-performing exposures are gradually reduced. So, but again, I'm proud of the success story, or of the ongoing success of Egbolon, and thank you for your feedback. Okay, so I'll take one more question from the attendees before I go back to. We have a question for our NNPC representative, our GM from NNPC. But before we get to that, one more question from the audience. Excuse me a minute. Okay, so this question is from. Okay, these are more of comments, really. Okay, this question still goes to Mrs. Olajumoke, but I think you've answered it. It says, how do you plan to manage partner alignment issues, approvals? But I think you've addressed that. The question from, what is your take on country risk, and how how do we constructively engage potential foreign investors and lenders? Okay. Also a valid question from Ibe. And I would like to throw that question. Sorry, I hope I'm still being heard.
Loud and clear, Derry.
I would like to throw that question to Mr. Moritala Mohammed, GM Finance and Investment, NMPC. Mr. Mohammed, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Good morning to everyone on the call. Just before I respond to the question, I'd like to say a very big thank you really to the organizers of this event for the opportunity to be part of this platform. It's really turning out to be a huge learning opportunity for me. A very big thank you also to the keynote speaker for presenting a classical case study on a project finance that has all the challenges and how they were able to surmount those challenges. So back to the question around country risk. Indeed, it is a very, very valid question. Country risk has significantly impacted credit ratings for oil and gas companies, and the need for you to maintain a very good credit rating, even if you're constrained to be within the sovereign rating, is key to supporting you in securing financing. So generally in securing financing, the challenges around that include political, economic uncertainty, as well as also the business environment. So the country risk challenge falls within the political space, where issues such as insecurity, government interference, strict requirements, something as good as it may sound, local content requirements sometimes tends to deter investment into the space. So, but if you look at that is what also the Petroleum Industry Act has come to assist in solving. Generally, the Industry Act expected to provide a fiscal certainty to improve the regulations and also the incentives for investment. That's, I mean, you also know that it includes something with tax holiday. So generally, the Act is to help us to improve a government take and also to balance risk and rewards. So far, so good. We can most conclusively say that the Act is still at a transition phase, and we are already beginning to see the benefits. And as soon as those benefits come to fruition, indeed, you do expect that the country risk is going to improve significantly. The improvement of the country risk is going to help companies in improving their credit ratings, and overall, you are rest assured that companies will have a better standing in supporting their future financing endeavors. I don't know if I've answered that question.
Thank you so much. Very valid. And you spoke right into the next question, which I have for you. You've spoken a lot about it, but I want you to emphasize a bit more on the PIA, and the implementation of the PIA. For long, the expectation of everyone was that it will make the economy more attractive to foreign direct investment, and that it will also, create an easier environment for business, especially in the oil and gas space. We can see that there's been a partial implementation of the PIA, but how would you say the Act has performed in terms of fundraising, in terms of empowering indigenous companies? How would you say the PIA has performed so far?
Indeed, thank you once more. And from my last comment, if you recall, I told you that part of the cardinal objectives of the PIA is to strengthen the fiscal certainty, improve regulations, and
I'm sorry, can you put on your video if you don't mind, if you are able to, so that attendees can more value. Great.
Okay, thank you so much. I guess you can see me clearly.
Yeah, clearly, Krista.
Okay, thank you very much. So if you recall, I was speaking to the issues of fiscal certainty, improving regulations, and indeed, of course, the incentives for investment. So, so far, so good. The implementation is still in process. And all this put together, it's expected that companies are going to also have very strong governance and transparent practices to attract funding. With respect to the fiscal space, we're all aware of all these fiscal incentives that PIA has provided, especially for companies that are willing to migrate to PIA terms. Most companies are still operating the prior Petroleum Act provisions. So for all companies that are willing to migrate to the PIA, indeed, they stand to benefit a lot from those fiscal incentives that are provided in there. On the regulation side, you have clearly seen the separation between NNPC Limited as a commercial entity and also the creation of NUPRC and the NMDPA, who are really carrying out those regulatory functions, trying to create ease of doing business for investors. And indeed, from the information we are having, it's really, really yielding fruits. We are seeing a lot of companies really approaching NNPC after they've get clearance from NUPRC and wanting to do businesses with us. Generally speaking, we're seeing a lot of requests, or I would like to say action around mergers and acquisition. People are really looking into that area. Divestment opportunities are coming up. Some of the operators, the private operators, are seeking to divest their assets. And lots of entrants are really, really approaching us, speaking to us, because as you know, NNPC operates in the entire value chain, upstream, midstream, downstream. And we have partnerships across those value chains in almost all the petroleum activities. So we're getting lots of such approach from investors. And we are also reviewing our portfolio of assets, and they're all put together. One can holistically say that these are the initial benefits that we're seeing coming from the implementation of the PIA. So I think in the nearest future, be rest assured that you'll be able to see the impact of that law, and the industry generally will be the one to benefit from it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well said. And there's a lot to pick from the feedback you've given us. And I like the fact that you mentioned that the PIA has allowed NNPC as a company to be more attractive by you're getting requests from intending investors, and there's room for more collaboration. Thank you for your feedback. I think we have one or two more questions from the attendees. And this question is from Bukola Olushola, and he says, Dr. Kayode and Mr. Chike, why do operators with no financial capacity prefer to hold on to 100% of their equity of nothing? Well, I think that has been answered already. Sometimes when you're starting, it could be wise for you to let go of part of your equity to attract the right funding, at that stage. And then as you scale up, you can, take back. Or Mr. Chikeze, would you like to lend your voice on that question?
Yes, I would. It's quite a big surprise to me. Can you hear me very well?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, because I think Dr. Kayode made the point very clearly that 100% of nothing is nothing. But I do believe that a lot of businessmen in Nigeria just like to walk around saying that they are oil and gas people owning mining leases, even if nothing is happening in those mining leases. It's something like a badge of honor. And I do suspect that some of it has to do with the stories they hear about people that got mining leases in the past. You hear of generals and all these kind of people that became billionaires with mining leases. Had interesting discussions with some people that have major mining leases they've held on to for decades. And I've said to them that there's no value in these things if you don't attract investment. And sometimes to attract that investment, you need to give up something, typically equity. And I find it surprising that, that message doesn't get through to them. So, I can't figure out what it is. It makes no business sense to me that people will hold on to a mining lease, cannot attract funding, but seem to be proud to be introduced as oil and gas people, owning mining leases. There's no value in it if that is just that announcement you need. So just like the person who asked, I'm puzzled. It's quite surprising that those kind of things are happening, but they are happening. And government needs to play a role. Mr. Murtala Ahmed, it's not only about NNPCL and NUPRC talking about revoking these licenses. They need to revoke them so that people will realize that, just getting a license is not where it all ends. You need to develop them and contribute to the national economy.
Thank you so much. Very well said. I think that's the call to action. The CTA, as some people like to call it. Thank you very much, Mr. Chikeze, for that.
Indeed, apologies to interject. Very well said, and you're right. Part of the provisions of the PIA, which also the NPRC is monitoring closely, it puts a time frame within which, if you do not develop an asset given to you, it is revoked and given to people that are more serious to deal with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that intro, Mr. Ahmed. I'm very aware of that policy because I know some people who are falling victim of that, because they couldn't raise funding for a protracted period of time, and their assets remained undeveloped. They had to lose possession of those assets. Okay, so the next question is from Paul Kelechi. And the question is for Dr. Kayode. Again, it says, thank you, Dr. Kayode, for your wonderful speech. My question is this: you have attributed most of your company's success to your team members. I've noticed that your team is made up of mostly young people. Is that part of your strategy to make quick, key company decisions? Dr. Kayode, that's for you.
Sorry, hello. Yeah. I wouldn't say that's the case. I think the reason for us will be that we have a very, very cooperative board, and we're a very lean organization, which means that our project manager would make decisions or make recommendations on projects. For instance, no project company can come to me or to any of our board to ask for projects, because I'm not a project manager. I don't even know the right company or their capacity. So we will depend on our project manager to make recommendations to the procurement team. And like I mentioned earlier on, we have the benefits of having a private sector player as partners. So we are always aligned. It's who can deliver cost effectiveness and then ability to capacity to deliver. So that's really what drives us. In terms of the age of the age distribution of our company, I think it's a matter of that there's a transition from within the industry where you have a lot of experience, and then you have, we don't have a lot of middle, I don't want to say mid-career level performers. So that's probably what you see. But we have most of our directors are much older than I am, and then, but you're right, most of the guys that are making decisions under their guidance are mid-career level guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much. for your feedback. Very valid. I believe you 100% addressed the question. Okay, there's another question here for Mr. Ahmed, and it says, how does NNPC, this is anonymous, how does NNPC plan to boost the investment in the development of stranded gas fields in Nigeria?
Okay, another good question, indeed. Yeah, as I've earlier said, we operate in all the streams, and today I can almost confirm to you that we have projects that are lined up towards improving our gas utilization. One of which, and I will just be open as we spoke, as we agreed earlier, is the Brass LNG, project, which has been low key and not much has been happening in that space because we all know the abundance of gas resource that we have. Indeed, Nigeria is typically being seen as a gas country, actually. We are looking into bringing that back on stream. Anytime soon, you will begin to see traction around bringing Brass and LNG on stream. But you are also aware of the various gas infrastructure projects that we're having across the country, like the AKK, the Abuja-Kaduna-Kano gas pipeline, which on the corridor seeks to come up with lots of power plants and industrialization, all targeted towards utilizing our gas resources. In the immediate, you will have seen in the media, I think two months ago, when Mr. President commissioned the Abuja power plant. That power plant is a gas-fired power plant to be supplied through the AKK. So indeed, there are lots of initiatives going on at the moment, and we are looking also for investors all over the world to support us in developing these gas resources. Challenge that has come up, honestly, and indeed it's really a worrisome one, is to say that generally we've been saying gas is our transition fuel, and we used to think that gas really qualifies and meets or complies with the ESG requirements. I will be happy to let you know that we have seen down in recent times from investors coming to support us to deliver these gas infrastructure projects. And typically the only question was, how are power plants going to be fired? And we told them gas, and they said gas does not qualify as a transition fuel to them. It does not meet the ESG component. As such, it's really, really setting us aback. But indeed, we are not erring. We are looking for other opportunities and investors that would have a soft landing on such. So that's where we are basically.
Okay, thank you so much. You've adequately answered that question. Okay, our next question is for Mr. Adechola Peter Olowononi. And the question is, what are the major parameters that you look out for when you are analyzing an obligors business for onward lending, of course, particularly in the oil and gas sector? And what advice would you give upcoming and existing businesses in that space to make their business more attractive and to de-risk their business before bringing it to lenders like yourself for lending?
Thank you, moderator. And
we'd like to see your screen.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
So in terms of the critical factors that we consider when we are assessing especially upstream oil and gas financing, I think today we've learned from experience. Evacuation has been a big issue for us. And, when the previous speakers were speaking, part of the reasons why we, as you mentioned, and you supported Aderiola, is that the banks have huge non-performing loans or delayed repayments because whilst oil has been brought from the subsurface to surface, it's not been able to go to market because of theft, because of terminal issues, pipeline and evacuation and infrastructure issues, right? Such that they can recoup the capital that they've deployed and then give it as a new loan to a new project, right? So today, in assessing upstream oil and gas transactions, we are very big on evacuation. We want to see was the primary evacuation infrastructure that is available, the nearest one. Are there alternatives? So transactions with alternative evacuation infrastructure then seem to appeal more to us, because we are now sure that in the event of a downtime on the major export trunk line, there can be barging, can be maybe trucking, and then maybe trucking, a hybrid form of trucking and barging together that can ensure that some of the barrels still get to market, and with time, maybe over a longer period than we previously anticipated, we can still get repaid, right? The second then will be, as I think Madam Jumoke spoke about, really producing assets. Also, again, because we've had experiences where we've put money into re-entry work, into assets that were not producing marginal fields, and then reservoirs were missed, or there were challenges with completion of the wells, and basically the wells performed suboptimally, to the extent that maybe there was the oil water cuts, or something was just completely wrong, that we couldn't get the anticipated production volumes. So what you have now seen banks saying today is that we will not fund a greenfield asset where there is no production, because the bank is worried. For us, for example, classical example, we put money into a re-entry. This was before I joined the bank a few years ago, and the re-entry did not go as anticipated. What now was required was for us to put more money to do a sidetrack to ensure to see. And the money went in again, and what the results was not achieved. So what that means is that you put in an original $1, you had to put additional $1 to cure, to have a chance to recover your initial $1, and then all your money then goes down the drain. So the bank is insisting these days, and most of the banks I've seen saying we must have an existing unincubated production, right? Such that in the event that I give you new money for maybe to ramp up your production, to expand your facilities, drill new wells to put on stream, if that does not go as forecasted or as planned, there's a backstop, there's a recourse to the existing production. So in assessing credits, the bank wants to see, is there an alternative? It may not necessarily be on the asset. If there's an alternative source of repayment, then that kind of transaction will appeal to a bank. Other strong things will then be, other criteria will then be the credit fundamentals. We want to see what is the price per barrel that will deliver the oil. That way we then know the break-even price, such that if oil prices dip or crash, we want to see that at least above cost, are you still able to continue to produce? And then we want to see hedging, those are things, and then the equity contribution that is coming into the asset. And increasingly, because of the drive for net zero, we want to see projects that infuse those characteristics of clean energy, where the gas there's an alternative, there's a gas monetization strategy for the AG that is produced to ensure that this is not being flared, and that we can demonstrate that end to end, that value, there's no flaring to further pollute the environment, right? So the kind of things we would assess when we're looking at a credit, and how we've continued to support the upstream oil and gas under these tight conditions.
Thank you so much. Very valid. And then just to add a final question to what you've said, where you have companies who don't necessarily have tick all the boxes you mentioned, but maybe have consultants who are well-known, renowned, global technical consultants providing advisory for them. Maybe they also have things like instruments from the commercial banks, like an SBLC, to give you some level of comfort. Would that also help, in your decision making?
Sure. So, of course, because Afreximbank was created as a child of necessity, banking itself, all we try to do is cure gaps. So as much as possible, we continue to find solutions. We are not straight cut in the way we assess credit. we look at the credit enhancement, like when you're talking about SBLCs or guarantees, that will be classified as a credit enhancement to then see how much money can we avail on the back of this guarantee so that the development work can occur. So where a bank, for example, and we've done this severally, where a bank does not have the dollar liquidity or they want cheaper dollar pricing from us, we're able to give and take Nigerian OMO bills, this Naira treasury bills as collateral or as security, and then we avail the dollars at a cheaper rate so that even when the pass-through bank adds up a markup, it's still very competitively priced, right? So there are different ways. We just keep engaging in conversation. More recently, for the marginal few players, we've been in conversations with a few of the guys who just won the PPLs to say, okay, can Afrexim Bank issue a standby letter of credit to a Halliburton, to a Baker, an oil service contractor, where they then go take Afrexim Bank's risk, deliver first oil, and once the first oil is so established at a predetermined rate, we'll refinance them and then book the loan against the asset that the asset produces over a longer period. But what that helps the service contractor to do is that once first oil is established and steady, they get a check, they take a walk, and then whatever happens over the next 3 years, we then take that risk. We then work with the customer, but that way we have a backstop, a fallback, because there's some form of production now that we know that can augment the loan. It may take a longer time, as I've said earlier, but we will eventually get our money. And then depending on how the production goes, we can then be upsizing the debt to help the client ramp up his production and carry on and expand its field development plans to increase its production. But clearly, as we said, we usually just will engage depending on a case-by-case basis, and we propose solutions and see how we can give value. And where it's not possible, then we know that we've had very tangible engagement and it wasn't possible in that scenario. Then we shake hands and hope we can do business again in the future.
All right. Thank you so much. I think your feedback has given hope to someone out there that, it's not as bad as it looks. There's still some creative ways in which we can raise funding, for people across the different sectors in the oil and gas. So thank you very much. Your feedback is well appreciated. Yeah. Okay. So we'll go back into the attendees, the questions from the attendees. Okay. So this is from Aderele Afolabi, and it says, how is associated gas handled? He also says, I'm proud of you all. Thank you very much for being proud of us. We're proud of you too. So how is associated gas handled? Okay. Associated gas, of course, is gas found in an oil well. So when you are originally looking to drill oil and then you come across gas, I think that falls under associated gas. So I'll throw that open to Mr. Chikezie. Would you like to tell us, what do you do, or what do companies do when they are drilling for oil and then they come across associated gas?
Thank you very much. I need to correct that terminology. I think the person asking the question is referring to gas associated with the production of oil.
So
that you could find while you're trying to prospect for oil. A lot of it is non-associated gas unless it's gas cap gas on top of an oil rig. So in many cases, I think let me start from what government is trying to do. Historically, associated gas was flared, and the flare penalties were so low that companies didn't care.
We just lost Mr. Chikezie there. Okay, it's back up.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, back up. We can hear.
I'll turn off my video because it's a bad.
It's affecting your audio, right? It's fine.
Okay, so like I was saying, a lot of companies were flaring and the penalties were very, very low, but government has since significantly increased those penalties. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Now, government has also put in place a scheme, and maybe you can expand on this, which is the Nigerian Flares Gas Commercialization Project, where the expectation is that these companies, it's either you do something about the flared gas, just like in line with the domestic gas supply obligations, you do something, or they will do something for you. Yeah. So if you refuse to actually put a project to take your flared gas and convert it into some useful products, then government will do that for you. And I know that they have actually written to a number of companies telling them to cease from flaring gas. Yeah. And if they don't demonstrate that they are doing any projects, then they will come and just assign a contractor to the gas. Now, the big challenge with associated gas is the fact that, as your oil production declines, so also does your associated gas production in many cases. Although you may be able to liberate a little bit more gas from the oil, but effectively that's what happens. And so it's not really sustainable, in the sense of gas projects that you want a plateau of production for 20 years. Mm-hmm. So a number of companies are doing associated gas. I know that Hess Energy is doing a lot of their gas is actually associated gas, but that's because they have a significant associated gas portfolio coming from their oil production. So they can afford to do that. But they also realize that they have to supplement that with non-associated gas, which is actually, gas that is gas in the reservoir on its own and not absorbed within the oil itself. I would say that, what should people do about associated gas? I do something, or the government will do something. It's that simple. Yeah. If you choose not to do anything, you continue to pay huge penalties. And again, Moritola, let me just rock the boat a little bit. If you want to force companies to do something else, increase the penalties. That will probably force their hands into making sure that they stop polluting the environment and they use those useful gas resources to further develop the country, because this is one of the kind of gas that when you produce it is for domestic consumption. Mm-hmm. Again, I continue to reiterate that my own mantra, my company's mantra, is about production for domestic consumption. And if you don't mind, Mr. Desalu, let me just say something very quickly about the comments that I heard from the Afrexim person here. Now, when you talk about export, sorry about going back on that because it piqued my interest. When you talk about alternative export routes, trucking and barging are not should not be where the concentration should be, especially for land assets. Shouldn't be trucking and barging. Trucking and barging are very expensive, and although that guarantees the funding of the bank that they'll get their money, it actually destroys value for the asset holder, because you're talking about things in excess of $20, $25 per barrel, depending on whether you're trucking a long distance and barging. And maybe you can sustain that in an $80 per barrel world, but if the oil price comes down to $50, $60 per barrel, it is uneconomic to truck and barge crude. Now, building new export pipelines is not also the way to go. And that's why I am promoting the building of refineries, modular refineries next to marginal fields, producing refineries, next to producing marginal fields. That is an export route because people haven't yet seen the dynamics of how that works. So if you keep it close enough, all those vandalization and theft issues just go away. You create massive job opportunities. You add value to the oil for local consumption. Yeah, if I give an example with diesel, it will amaze you the kind of gross profit margins that you can make from the refining business. And when you then combine your upstream business with this refining business, you protect your investment upstream, you guarantee the export of your crude to the refinery, and you also add additional value on top of it, create job opportunities, just a massive, massive, massive value add to it, instead of thinking about trucking and barging crude. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chike. Very well said, very brilliant idea. And apart from the fact that it's a high barrier entry idea, I think it's sellable. And I think those are the ways in which collaborations are formed, I'm sure there are parties that would immediately find it as an actionable idea, and they have access to the required funding. Okay, we have just about 3 minutes more, but I'll quickly take the feedback, the response from Mr. Adeshola quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Chike, and very, very well spoken and completely agreed. What you have said is the model Walter Smith is all currently deploying, and zero losses on the accrued, maximizing returns to the investment on their investment. Just in speaking to put in context of what I was saying, is that in an event where we have funded, right, or where there is no refinery plan, what we are saying is that we want to ensure that there's some alternative mechanism that can guarantee some minimum level of debt service, so that when the pipeline is being fixed, when maybe the underlining the primary evacuation route is being restored, there is no dryness, there's no because when banks begin to struggle is when by the time you go for 90 days without any cash flow, then you put it on watch list. Then after 180 days, you then move to doubtful. Different banks have different classification of how the loan begins to evolve, and then their regulators come and put a hammer on them. So, but you would imagine that if there was some form of trucking or some form of, even though, yes, as you have mentioned, it's not sustainable, it's more expensive, but once there's some cash flows coming in, the regulator shows, will I use the word mercy, or the regulator will not pick the loan as non-performing yet. So that's just the context of what I meant. But clearly, the model which you have described is what Walter Smith has deployed. You have your wells, you have your refinery, you refine, and you sell end to end and keep value, which is really what Africa should be pursuing. Value addition, you keep more jobs instead of just exporting raw crude and then re-importing refined product. Just to say that fully aligned with you, sir.
Thank you so much. I like the ideas I'm hearing. We have so many more questions from the attendees, but this just that we might have a sequel sometime soon, but we have to start bringing it to a close. So we'll take one more question for Mrs. Ajayi from our pool of questions. And basically we're asking, in your opinion, what are the current trends? We've spoken about some of them, but what are the current trends in the oil and gas space as it pertains to fundraising? And how do you see us creating opportunities with them, turning the threats into opportunities? What are some of the trends that stand out to you?
Okay. I guess I've mentioned most of them. And as marginal field operators, like I said earlier on, we have to be creative. We have to think out of the box. We shouldn't say that this is the norm, this is the ways of doing things. We should look at crashing a 5-year program and doing it in 2.5 years. I have successfully done that in the past. It can still be done. And I mentioned that collaboration is very important. Let me cite an example. You see, we have the big operators, we have the indigenous companies, Seplat and so on. We have marginal field operators like we that just won the PPLs in the last 1.5 years. We all go to the same rig market, for instance. If the likes of Seplat and all that wants to drill, they have 2 years drilling work program. They go to a rig provider and have a contract with the rig provider and lock the rig for like 2 years. The rig provider will be willing to work with the likes of Seplat than coming to me in general, who has only one well campaign. So I said earlier on that shared services is very important. Marginal field operators who are in the same vicinity can, within a clustered area, you can come together, speak to one rig operator, plan your work program in such a way that you, maybe 4 or 5 of you, can plan your work program in such a way that when this rig is moving away from one project, it's going to, yes, it is drilling for different companies, but under one single contract. But he knows that, okay, I'm drilling for 5 different companies, but it's one single contract that will keep my rig busy for the next 1 year or 2. By so doing, you are shortening your waiting time. You are also reducing the cost because you'll be able to negotiate hard and get things done. So these are the ways we can, because if you wait for investors to take you to first oil, it's not easy to do that. Many marginal field operators today, even those who were awarded in 2002, many of them got their fields revoked because of lack of activities. And is it that they don't want to work? It is because they couldn't raise funds. So please, let's think of coming together, utilizing services, and not share facilities. Like I'm speaking now, I said, in the next few, very soon you hear from Ingencia that we've gotten to first. Am I building a flow station? No. Am I laying pipeline to take me to first oil? No. I'm taking advantage of operators close by. And I would utilize that me to first oil, and I can now think big later. So these are the things, creative ways we can get things started, but ensure that your corporate governance, you have credible shareholders, you have subject matter experts working with you. And another thing I need to mention is that when you get into this business, don't say because you are now an operator of an asset, you must set up the team to the point from exploration phase to development. Bring people in on need basis. For instance, when you want to start, ensure you get competent people, subject matter experts who are technically competent and commercially competent to work with you. And as you are moving into the next stage, you get the expertise you require. So these are some of the things we can do that can make things work better and limit our financial exposure. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Very well said. I mean, I've seen development projects being stalled because of the rig being, pending rig yet to be demobilized from another site. So that, of course, collaboration, it makes a lot of sense. Why not have one contract for 5 different projects, the same provider, and then you have a clear Gantt chart of when the rig will arrive at your field. Thank you so much. Very well said. And in terms of creativity, of course, I just recalled someone asked about about gas, what to do with gas. Another thing you could do is you could reroute the gas to power the operations of your field, or you could power the neighboring environments around you. So in the spirit of moving on, before I hand over to the MC for the closing remarks, I would like to take I'd like to take the closing remarks from each of the panelists in just 30 seconds or 1 minute from each person, in no particular order, starting from Dr. Kayode. Could you give us your closing remarks in a minute? Dr. Kayode, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, please. I'm trying to.
Okay.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for a very stimulating engagement. I personally learned a lot of from the panelists, more importantly from the questions from the team. We know as a country we don't have most times we don't have subsurface challenges. It's mainly about the current level of midstream infrastructure that we have. This is demonstrated by the fact that we have only 5 onshore in serving the countries for the last 50 years. What we will recommend as a company to our peers and to government is to consider a shift from building large evacuation export terminals and infrastructure to decentralized, fit-for-purpose midstream infrastructure that are close to very selected prolific fields. Once we have challenges as a country with Bonny Terminal, we panic as a country because that's a loss of revenue. If we can focus on building smaller terminal, like they do in other countries, that will contribute to energy security. You can also aggregate a lot of associated gas production from several other areas, thus contributing to low carbon footprint. And then once you have aggregated gas together, it also helps with the economy of getting funding for the gas project. We will be able to increase production rates and also reserves. Lastly, based on our experience, we think it's time for, I'm going to agree with my co-panelists, for African banks and the indigenous company and service providers to partner and develop some homegrown strategies to identify, mature, and then to close all these several bankable deals. So I want to thank you again for the opportunity to participate in this symposium. Thank you.
Hello.
I can hear you, Derek.
Hello?
I think that was my network. Thank you, Doctor. So over to Mr. Chikezie Nwosu for your closing remarks.
Okay, thank you very much. And I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
So yes, at this point, I'd like to thank the Society of Petroleum Engineers for always doing an excellent job. The organizers, the SPE Nigerian Council Chairman, my very good friend and brother, Salahuddin, very well done. The Regional Director, Mr. Ogogo, who has been terrorizing me on WhatsApp while this has been going on. So thanks for your comments, Oji. And the organizers, the moderator, and the keynote speaker, and all the other panelists. I think this is very well done. Let me again, because the message I've been speaking about has been for a long time, and it's about production and consumption within country. If I was given an opportunity, quite honestly, to be in the policy formulation part of the energy industry for government, I would not award any license to anybody that was either not going to build a gas processing plant and a modular refinery within a certain period of time to award that license. You need to understand what the major challenges for GDP growth in Africa are. It's not about the natural resources that we have. It's about the fact that we produce them for export and consumption for other countries. So we take our oil and gas and we pipe them out. And those countries, you ask, why do they want to pay for it? Because it develops their country. And even when they refine these products and send back to us, they send it back at a significant margin to us. It doesn't help shore up our own economy. It doesn't strengthen our currency. There's nothing that exporting these commodities do for us, quite honestly. But if you make it a policy that there must be investment in processing for domestic consumption and refining for domestic consumption, any excesses can be exported to the West African sub-region. Let's do this before the other African countries catch on to this idea. The profitability of this integrated type of development is massive. And if anybody wants me to demonstrate this, I've had experience doing this. So I can demonstrate how important it is to do this measure. So all these things around building export terminals, whether you're decentralized or everything, absolutely not for me. Yeah, it's about creating the job opportunities here by building those processing and refining capacities within Nigeria for Nigerian consumption. You consume the energy, your GDP growth goes on. You will find out that initially it may be a challenge on the cost of this energy, but ultimately, almost like mobile telephony, the cost per unit will go down. And that is what I'll continue to encourage people to do. If you need to have a discussion with me or my company about the direction, we can introduce you to our partners who are ready to have this journey with you on modular refining, and also find, maybe funding for your projects, so that your projects don't sit back and say that we're not able to do this because the banks are insisting that we show them an export route and we cannot demonstrate an export route, when in actual fact we can demonstrate a profitable export route. Those are my comments, and I'll continue to stress these points wherever I'm asked to speak. Thank you.
Darren, can you hear me? Thank you very much, Mr. Chikezie, for your excellent comments. I think we can have Mrs. Olajumoke's remarks next.
Okay, thank you very much. I must once again commend the organizers of this technical symposium. It is one that we should have from time to time. Now that we are having more indigenous players coming into the oil and gas space, we need to have this type of session from time to time so that they can learn from those who have done it before, in order to limit whatever, mistakes or challenges that they, face along the way. So it is very important, and I appreciate that SPE is doing this. And finally, my remark is that we need, as indigenous operators, we need to take very seriously community relations. Because no matter how prolific your field is, if you don't earn the trust of your host communities, you're in trouble. Even if you have the finances, you have investors to fund your project, if you can't get to it will be impossible to bring out the oil, let alone producing it. So we have to earn the trust of the community. Also, we are Nigerians like them. We should sit with them and ensure we have rapport with them and earn their trust, so that we can have freedom to operate at every point in time. And we talked about associated gas. I just want to share an experience with you. Associated gas, one thing, once you start producing, the first thing you need to do in order to ensure you have smooth operations within your host community environment is to convert the associated, take part of the associated gas to power the community, and let them know that whenever they shut down your operation, they have no light. I did that in my previous place of work, and help to have zero downtime, because as you are producing, the gas is coming, they know that as it comes, it powers the community. So that's an area we all can look at, if we're not doing yet, that we can take advantage of in order to ensure you have smooth running of your operation. And I want to say thank you very much to SPE for giving me this opportunity to participate in this program and share my experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Olajumoke, and we can confirm that this will not be the last time we'll have you. In fact, we can share that we are currently working on our next symposium, which is going to be on marginal field pace setters in Q1 of next year. In session, we would want to hear from the marginal field companies that have gotten to first oil, or at least perform their first operation. We will have them as and panelists to share with the rest of the industry how they are performing and how it's going. So we can share with you that we are currently working on that, and hear more from us in the coming weeks.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. With this, would have the remarks from Mr. Peter.
Thank you very much to the organizers, and thank you for having Afreximbank participate on this forum. And please be assured that we will always be happy to lend our experience, and we are happy to have full-on engagement with companies who are members who just want to discuss and see how we can support them. We're always happy to engage, happy to speak, because we never know what can happen. And again, thank you so much, and wish you all the best as you continue to push the frontiers to help Nigeria maximize and monetize its huge hydrocarbon reserves. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peter, for your remarks. Please keep the door to our Frexim open, because we will certainly be back to engage with your company on future events that we will have. We saved the best for last. Mr. Murtala, please, can we have your remarks?
Thank you so much. And indeed, I would like to start by thanking the organizers, like everyone else, such an excellent event. Indeed, every moment in this session has been value adding. Honestly, when I looked at my time, I saw it was already after 12. I was really feeling like we can go on and on and on. Excellent presenters. Mr. Owosu, I really, really appreciate you for your passion and also for putting on the table workable suggestions that can really, really be applied towards improving activities in the oil and gas sector. Your comments with respect to the question on associated gas is spot on. You are right on spot, and indeed, part of the benefits of the PIA again is to say that stringent penalties have been put in PIA. Not only that, it has also roped in even companies that are typically seen to be gas utilization companies, such as the NNNG, who are expected to have minimal flaring. The penalty does not exclude them. So in every area that you're operating and you're having associated gas, you either do the needful, re-inject, or monetize it. The flaring truly is a no. So having said that, I will just conclude by saying, indeed, that we are all aware, we're all in this industry, that the available financing is really, really shrinking for oil and gas projects, and it's obviously for energy transition and competition for the capital that we're seeing today. We need to start at alternative investors, okay? And in the long run, I'm foreseeing that a lot of collaboration needs to begin to happen amongst players in this industry. Because the typical or the traditional financiers, which are the banks, like Afrexim, Shola, my good friend, you understand that they also have a lot of limits, one of which is not able to fund for long term. Oil and gas projects are capital intensive, require a lot of OPEX and CAPEX spend. And the commercial banks today, you will see them only wanting to lend for 3 to 5 years max. So indeed, colleagues, it's been a very rewarding session, and I really thank you for the opportunity to be here. Do have a great day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murtala. We appreciate your time and your comments. Now we will have a photo session. We will take 3 photos. We encourage our guests and attendees online to please hold on, because we have some announcements, important announcements to make in the next 2-3 minutes. The first photo will be with all the panelists. If you could please turn your camera on, the keynote speaker and the moderator. The second photo would be with the same people, and we will also have the regional director and the SPE Nigeria Council Chair in the next photo. So please stand by, regional director and Mr. Chairman for the SPE Nigeria Council. So Dion, please confirm the picture is taken.
Yes, yes, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so I'm clicking right away. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, back to you, MC. We're good here.
Okay. Can we please have Nigeria Council Chairman and Regional Director with their cameras as well for the second photo? In including all the panelists, keynote speaker, and the moderator as well.
Okay. Okay, MC, I think we'll go with what we have here. Okay, I'm clicking right away.
And then finally, okay.
Thank you. All right, I'm done.
Thank you very much. And finally, we'll have all the SPE leadership team on the call. Please turn on your cameras. Let's take the final photograph before we proceed to the vote of thanks and finally upcoming events announcements. Your cameras, please.
Okay, let's give it 5 more seconds and I'll click. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Segun.
Thank you, Odion. Okay. So at this time, we will have the vote of thanks by none other than Lagos Section Secretary in the person of Mr. Chimere Alim. Chimere, over to you, please.
Hello, thank you very much, Shagun. Confirm you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
All right, thanks everyone, and thank you very much. On a personal note, I really found this session really insightful with a lot of engaging comments. So on behalf of the Society of Petroleum Engineers, Lagos Section, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to everyone, everyone who has contributed to the success of this event. Very special thanks to all our distinguished guests, the moderator, keynote speaker, panelists, ARD, SPE Nigeria Council Chair, for gracing us with your presence and sharing your invaluable insight on this topic of project finance. I really learned a lot. Thank you very much. As several people have already mentioned during the course of today's event, I would also like to appreciate the organizing committee led by Hasana and Segun for their message. And finally, to all our virtual participants and attendees, I'd like to thank you for your active participation. Like I said, the Q&A sessions were really engaging. Your efforts have really made these events memorable. And we look forward to seeing you at some of our upcoming events, which we'll be sharing with you in the upcoming slides. Maybe we can go to. So if you take a look at your screen, you see some of our plans for the rest of the year. We have the Young Professionals Sip and Paint session, which is scheduled to hold on the 9th, which is Saturday, next tomorrow. We also have the end of the year party, children's party for some of our kids at Ishrina School. This was scheduled to hold on the 23rd of December. 2023. So we are hoping to see a lot of us also attend some of these sessions. Next slide. Okay. So I think I mentioned them already. The other activity that we do have for December, we have an SPE Lagos collaboration with the International Women's Society to present a panel session and business pitch for entrepreneurs. This is scheduled to hold on the 14th of December. Like I mentioned earlier, we really look forward to seeing a lot of us at those events. And finally, for next month in January, we do have a distinguished lecture, which is currently scheduled for the 23rd of January. The topic of that lecture would be how oil and gas companies are shaping low carbon energy technologies. The speaker of that session would be none other than Dr. Rita Okura from us know her. So this is another activity that's planned, and like I mentioned, we we would encourage all of us to join and be a part of all these our events. In the first quarter of next year, we do have the Marginal Field Pacesetter Symposium, similar to this one. And I'll hand back over to Segun to give us some extra detail on that. Segun, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Jimmy. So in Q1, we're planning a Marginal Field Pacesetter physical event. In Q1, we want to hear from the marginal field operators that have successfully performed some walkover re-entry or flowed to first oil, and hear from them their experiences, how they did it, their challenges. Finance certainly will come up again, and just overall get that platform where they can share their story for each and every one of us learning and implementation in the industry. So that's going to be a good event. Stay abreast of our activities, especially the timelines when our future events are ready. Do follow us on all platforms. We are on LinkedIn with SPE Lagos Section 61. Do follow us. That's where we post all our events. Do follow us on X as well, SPE_Lagos. We are on Instagram, SPE_Lagos, Facebook, and YouTube alike. Matters concerning membership, those who want to update their membership, renew their membership, you may reach out to the following resource persons on the right. Odion Okosun, you can reach out to him with this email, sectionadmin@spelagos.org. You could also reach out to the membership chair, Adewale Ogunleye, with this information, and Jackson Ogbonna as well, for matters related to membership. So I'll leave this for 2 seconds so you could, take a snapshot of our LinkedIn, X, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube names. For those who know, there's a lot of perks that come with being a member of the Society of Petroleum Engineers. Number one, excellent network opportunity. Professional members also get conference discounts. We have the big SPE Nice event every year around August, late July. So there'll be discounts for this. Almost all players share, exhibit about their companies and technology and trends in industry. So do renew your professional membership for professionals in the house. You also have access to 10 free technical papers each year through the One Petro platform. You have work you're doing, you're not exactly sure how to go about it. One an excellent resource to get papers on what other people have done in the past. Networking opportunities are endless, and you do have access to business and insurance discounts for select businesses who are partners of SPE. Young professionals are alike. There's a lot of benefits for young professionals as well as students. The e-mentoring program, League of Volunteers, where you get to meet professionals in industry, build relationships, and those natural mentorship relationships as well. Access to career path fairs, and you get to attend the Professionals Summit. So with this, would like to thank each and everyone for joining the symposium today on upstream oil and gas finance. We thank our keynote speaker. We thank the moderator. We thank our distinguished panelists. We do appreciate your time and we do not take it for granted. We look forward to further engagements with you, and we wish everyone else a blessed day and a blessed rest of December and a very productive 2024 for oil and gas production. So with this, we thank you and have a great day. Goodbye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you very much, everyone. Bye.